It is time now for today's Talkback segment. Each day we post a question on Core TV's social media pages. We gather your comments and questions and respond right here on the show. Now, we're on verdict watch in the best friend murder trial in Georgia. 21-year-old Austin Ford is accused of killing his friend Tori Lang. Now, we asked you for what you thought about the case after hearing closing arguments. Still with me, trial attorney Joe Richardson and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor David Bruno. All right, guys, let's get to our comments. And our first one comes from Mary Ann. She says, I can't get beyond the burned car, tossed gun, and lies. Why? Guilty, with an exclamation point. Joe, I got to ask you, and I said this earlier, you're going to have to convince a jury that his explanation for why he did those things is credible. Because I think the story itself could be credible, the fact that this was a suicide, but why does he go ahead and lie about it, toss the car, toss the gun, and then, you know, doesn't talk to police, doesn't even tell the family what happened? He says he was afraid of the outcome. There's some credibility to that, but will jurors buy it? Clearly, that viewer did not.
He mucks it up a little bit, maybe a lot. You know, on the one hand, it's one thing if you are someone that would be suspected, right, to begin with. You're a jilted lover. You are, you know, you're a domestic abuser. You know, you're someone that's in a box somehow where the police would come looking for you. It's not clear that he would have been that guy without all of the stuff that's done on the back end. I understand, frankly, being in fear of the police response and being fearful of things, and I don't buy the, if you're not worried about anything, if you're not guilty, you shouldn't be worried about anything. I don't go all the way there, but that doesn't get you to the place where you're burning cars and doing things like you're trying to hide evidence and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it is really hard because he gets right in the front of his own path to reasonable doubt and being found not guilty.
Yeah, that's what usually happens when you try to hide the truth. Our next comment comes from Mary. Mary says, moving the car is a deal breaker for me for guilty. However, I don't know if they have enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's a good question. I think she hits the nail on the head there, David, because at the end of the day, you have on the one side the lies, et cetera, et cetera. But the questions asked by the jury suggest that they're considering the event itself. Now, the state tried to cover its tracks. They said, you know, he could be assisting her in her suicide. He could have helped her, pulled the trigger. It could have been an aggravated assault, which led to felony murder. Could have been a manslaughter, that there was some kind of passionate moment between the two that led to the shooting. Again, we talked about it. They don't have a strict theory about the case. Does that hurt them? How bad is that going to hurt them in that jury room?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, it's an inconsistent theory. The prosecutor doesn't even know how it happened. And the charge is strong. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is a strong charge. And the defense attorney made the points. I mean, I was very impressed. I mean, can you imagine, Michael, I have never seen a shorter opening statement by the prosecutor. Now, I understand there was a rebuttal, and he spent most of his time on the rebuttal, but he makes a couple points and sits down. And the defense attorney did a great job. And look, this is the conundrum of this case. This is the dilemma that this jury has. You look at the after conduct, it's a guilty. You look at the facts of the case itself, of the killing itself, it's a not guilty because of the medical examiner. The medical examiner can't rule out suicide. Simply put, even the doctor that analyzed the wounds and the injuries can't rule it out. To me, that's reasonable doubt, and I don't care what happened after the fact. It's the medical examiner that has doubt.
Fair enough. Built-in reasonable doubt there with the medical examiner's testimony. Our next comment comes from Carmen. Carmen says, unbelievable that Lawrence Lewis actually said a woman's worth on Instagram is her face and figure. That is silly talk. That is wrong. Shame on you, Lawrence. And that's what I talked about earlier, Joe. I said, was he a little too honest there? I felt like I understood exactly what he was saying, but the way he went about saying it, I think it could be problematic, certainly with a juror or two.
Yeah, and the irony, he's saying, let's be honest, but at the same time, you know, we're pretty sure that this defendant is not honest. The question is, what is it that he's not honest about, right? You have to be conscious of how your jury is potentially going to react. You know, it's one thing to say something and to know. I mean, and the attorney ought to know whether or not they're coming off a way that could tick someone off, someone on the jury. They've got to be conscious of that because it can make a big difference.
Yeah, that defense attorney pushed the boundaries a couple of times. A lot of people online didn't like him. I'm with you, Dave. I thought he did a fantastic job, certainly with that closing. Deliberations continue tomorrow morning. Thanks to Joe Richardson, David Bruno for joining us tonight. Truly appreciate it, gentlemen. Coming up next, we're going to